Hello, everybody. Once again, I have the great honor and pleasure to talk to retired Lieutenant General Ben Hodges, who has been the Commander-in-Chief of the US Army in Europe from the years 2014 until 2017, which is exactly the time when Crimea was annexed and Putin started for the first time his war against Ukraine. Hello, welcome to the channel, Ben Hodges.
Thank you very much for the privilege, Christoph.
Thank you. By the way, my name is Christoph Müller. I am a musician and a caricature artist, but I'm also making YouTube videos here for supporting Ukraine. And if you like this program, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel, which is important for the growth of the channel and all that stuff. You know it. So let's start with our questions. Ben, today we had the news that the Europeans, they sent to Greenland a little reconnaissance team of 13 people, together also with other European nations, with France, with Sweden, with Norway. Is this now finally a step that Europe makes the right thing towards the Trump administration to show that? What is your assessment on that?
Well, look, I think this is not a bad idea. If the Trump administration says their real concern is security, I don't think it is, but that's what they say it is. Then this is a positive action by allies saying, okay, America, you protected us for 80 years and helped us rebuild after the war. Now it's our turn to help protect you. So we're going to start looking at how we can increase our contribution to Arctic defense. And so it's needed anyway, but it also will, I think, expose what the Trump administration really wants is just to dominate everything in the Western Hemisphere. It's not about security, just like Venezuela was not about drugs. So I think it is appropriate and important that allies stick together with Denmark and show that they're not just going to roll over just because President Trump has said, I got to have it. I'm going to have it the hard way or the easy way. I think this whole thing is a terrible policy decision by the Trump administration. And it's important that Europeans save us from ourselves.
So it's all the time I'm wondering how the administrations and also NATO General Secretary Mark Rutte, how they are bowing before Trump and doing all the time things to show him that they love him and that they tease him and so on. But in the end, it's about military, about military force, and nobody can compete against the United States. And so everybody is afraid. And do you think that the United States will do whatever they want with military force, or can they be stopped?
That's the language that comes out of the White House, particularly from this little Chihuahua, Mr. Miller, who says that, we're a great power and, that's the way it is. It's the way it's always been. But fortunately, finally, some Republicans in the Congress are saying, stop this. This is ridiculous. Why are we doing this to damage NATO, the most successful alliance in the history of the world, and which has benefited the United States for decades? Why are we doing this? So I think this is important that the Congress begins to push back, which also makes it important what Europeans are doing to demonstrate that they care about this, making it clear that Europe, our biggest trading partner, cares about what's happening, not just to NATO, but to the relationship in general. So perhaps this can be sorted out before it gets worse. Now, I don't even like the idea that the administration said, well, we're going to buy it. There are 50,000 people that live there. This is not a block of empty townhouses in Manhattan we're talking about. It's a place where people live. And it's the territory of NATO allies. So, the whole idea of doing this
is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's causing more damage. This will be the biggest own goal How do you say own goal in German?
I don't know this word too. Own goal.
When you kick the ball into your own net,
Eigentor.
Eigentor,
How is own goal? Own goal. Okay.
own like
Ah,
our
yeah.
own goal.
Mhm. Eigentor.
So so that's
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah. The Trump administration is doing the all the time this own goals, but
yeah
they get away with it.
for
This
for what purpose? I mean, the damage that we're doing to relationships has been built over centuries. In some cases, the trust.
yeah.
But this is what I mean. It's an own goal. It's not necessary, and the damage is going to be severe.
So it's about telling the people around Trump, because Trump himself has said nobody can stop me except myself. I'm paraphrasing. Don't have those. It was ridiculous, and so who can stop Trump? So I mean, God can stop him when he puts him out of the game. I mean, death. That
Well,
will be
look, it's
that.
what will stop him is the Republicans in Congress. When they realize that when they finally realize it and acknowledge that his policies are not only bad for America, but it's bad for their voters. And I think then they will not be scared of Trump anymore. Right now, too many of them are scared that Trump will, do something to them. But this is an election year, and I think at least a few of them will are hearing from their voters that they're not happy about this Greenland thing, this Venezuela thing, inflation, the Minneapolis police
Oh yeah.
or the ICE shooting this poor woman in Minneapolis. People are not happy about this, and so Republicans in Congress are starting to feel that, I think, and so that's what will stop President Trump is the Congress and of course the voters.
Yeah, when you mention all those things, people are not happy with Trump. They should not be happy about his behavior towards Putin, the Russian dictator. And before you could have said, yeah, Putin, he's a mighty guy, he's a military, he's a strong force, and so on. But now it's, to me at least, and to many of us, obvious that Putin is on the brink of losing the thing. Everything is collapsing down. Now his last ally, except North Korea, I mean, Iran is also ready to crumble, and so and the economy of Putin is so devastated,
Devastated.
devastated that Putin is almost there to be bankrupt, and the Ukrainians fight heroically. And when do the last guys in the MAGA administration on the Republican side get it that it is really, really damaging also and an own goal, shooting in their own feet, that being allied with Putin, that's the wrong thing.
Yeah. Well, President Trump has always, I think, his approach has always been doomed to failure because he never cared or understood how, why, or when the war started.
Yeah.
And Vance refers to these as details. But if you're serious about stopping a war, you have to know who started it, what's it about.
Mm-hmm.
And so because they dismiss that and only put pressure on the Ukrainian side, that's never going to work. And then just yesterday, I guess President Trump said that President Zelensky is the reason that the peace talks have not gone further. So he's blaming Zelensky again. So anytime, all of your listeners, and I think most of your listeners already know, anytime President Trump says something that makes it sound like, okay, I'm really mad at Putin, I'm going to do something, zero. And people, and I think this is when, and I hate to say this, it's unfortunate, but I think the Ukrainians don't trust my president, and frankly, they shouldn't. But President Zelensky has to continue in the negotiating process because he doesn't want Trump actively working against him. But really, it's the Europeans are going to have to fill in the gap.
You mention it. Europe has to get in to fill in the gap. Yeah, I see me as a European, and you also live in Frankfurt. You know the situation exactly well here in Europe, in Germany. we are somehow squeezed between Russia on the right side and the United States now, which are also our enemies on the left side. And we are alone on this continent, and Ukraine is fighting. How can we bring, as Europeans, ourselves more into the situation that we have to establish a military power which can be, which has some weight?
Yeah. Well, first of all, stop believing the Russian narrative that Russian victory is inevitable. I mean, you just described how it's not inevitable. It's not going to happen. Russia cannot defeat Ukraine. They can only kill innocent civilians by bombing them in their apartments at
So
nighttime.
horrible.
That's all they can do. They cannot overwhelm the Ukrainian defenders. After 14,
I just made a broadcast about that. 1,418 days. It lasts longer than the Second World War in the eyes of another Russian propaganda myth crumbled.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so last year in 2025, the Russians gained exactly zero point 0.8 of 1%. So
Point eight of
less than
1%.
yeah, less than 1% of Ukrainian territory in a year. It cost 150 billion euro and 200,000 casualties. So they
Wow.
can't at that rate, it'll be a couple of centuries before they could ever be finished. So I think their economic problems are there. So Europe should stop believing this nonsense that Russia's big and great and too powerful. And if you add together the economies, the industry, the population, the wealth, the military of all of the EU, plus Norway, plus UK, plus Ukraine, it dwarfs Russia. It
Hmm.
dwarfs Russia. So I
Hmm.
don't understand why Europeans cannot think like that.
You never get tired to mention this in every interview I hear from you, and also those I had the honor to talk with you. You say that all the times, and that is, don't they get it? That I mean, the Europeans now, don't
Yeah.
they get it that they are strong? We Europeans, we are strong. But that's why I started our interview with the first thing that I was really happy to hear those news today that they send reconnaissance teams there to show we are there with Germany, 13 people. No, not bad, huh? Just first step to support. But we really have
What
to
what
get up.
that's 13 more than the Russians or Chinese have there.
By the way, yeah, that's good. Um, okay, so we can. What shall I do? We can. I have the thought that we've covered every topic now. We cannot repeat ourselves all the time, and they and they don't get it.
Right.
So this is so insane. How do you think? How do you feel, Ben, when you're telling the same stories all the time again to whomever, and they don't get it? They don't
Well,
understand it.
the, of course, that could be a reflection on me as a communicator,
No,
but
you're good.
it could also be the fact we're competing against decades of Kremlin propaganda, of Kremlin um, information. Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
they so many people here in even in Germany that still believe, oh my God, Russia, because they think what they heard from their grandparents or their parents about the Soviets, and of course nobody wants to have a war with Russia because of what their parents or grandparents experienced. That's understandable. But to believe the incorrect history that the Kremlin always puts out. I was talking to a very, very distinguished professor back in 2000, before 2022. And I mean, he was like doctor,
Hmm.
professor, one
Hmm.
of those super
Hmm.
educated. And he said, come on, Ben, the Russians, I mean, why are you always talking about Crimea? Crimea has always been Russia. It's always been Russia. I said, Herr Professor, really? Always Russia? I mean, that would be a surprise to the Ottomans, to the Greeks, to, to the Tartars. that this was always Russia. I said, you know what? And I had to tell him, and here's a guy, Professor Doctor,
Mhm.
um, that Crimea became Russian when Catherine the Great took it at
Yeah.
the end of the 18th century. Um, but there's too many people are willing to believe, come on, it was always Russia, and or that the Ukrainians are really Russians with a different accent. I mean, that's the nonsense. And so you have to continuously push back on that. And I also I heard an American ambassador one time. He said, "You know what? It was Ukrainians are the only people in all of Europe that died with an EU flag in their hand. That
Wow.
they want to be in Europe. They want to be a part of that. And of course, that's what the Kremlin cannot bear."
Wow. This is this is a thing we have to acknowledge, that the compassion we should have for Ukrainians must be stronger, because what you just mentioned, the dying with a EU flag in the hand, many of us Germans would never do this. They would flee. They would escape. Just yesterday, I saw a fantastic piece of theater in Bonn, in the Brotfabrik. By the way, those from Bonn who see this today on, oh no, maybe I must publish this interview today then, so that this advertisement would become valid. I saw a fantastic piece of theater where it shows that Ukrainian youth, they are just like ours. They are young people. They want to grow up. And then the war comes, and everything is gone. But they are people like you and me, and they are dying, as you say, with the EU flag in their hand. And it's so valuable. Our democracy is so valuable. Our freedom is so freedom of thought and freedom of speech, freedom of everything. It's not empty phrases. And this is the most important thing. We just have to fight for it. And the Ukrainians are the only ones who really fight for it. The rest of us, we always discuss. And Ben, when I hear this word peace process and peace negotiations and peace talks and so on, this word peace, this is useless when they are fighting. We cannot talk about peace if we don't stop the fighting. And stopping the fighting with Putin can only done by weapons, and that means also to fight.
Absolutely. I mean, he shows every night what he thinks about the peace process. With these hundreds of drones and missiles
Putin, yeah.
hitting not only apartment buildings but also the power grid. So that I mean, what happens is not just your heat goes down; it's everything is stopped. That depends on electricity. Medical, transportation, factories, light plus heat, everything. And so, of course, they know what they're doing. That's why they're doing it. So anybody that thinks Russia really is interested in peace on anything but their terms, which means absolute total uh, capitulation by Ukraine, they're going to keep doing this. And so this is why I think Europeans have to admit that they have been fooled by President Trump, strung along for the past year, and that they need to take this in their own hands, because the problem is going to be in the laps of Poles, Germans, Romanians, Lithuanians, and everybody else, as millions more Ukrainian refugees will start moving out if the military fails, or if there's some kind of a settlement where Ukraine is forced to give up terrain. And that we all know that will not be the end of it for the Russians. They're not interested just in Donbass.
No, of course not. Yeah. So we have to be ready in Europe to defend ourselves, also with weapons and with fighting. And there's no better country to teach us this than Ukraine.
Yeah, yeah.
And we have to understand that Ukraine needs the support by us, but we need also their support. We have been talking about this also in our last interview. And do you see any chance? Let's talk about the United States once again. Do you see the chance that Trump will be removed from office, and that MAGA will understand that this is not the right path, and that the Republicans will become good Republicans once again? Do you see any chance for that?
Um, I think what I have learned about my own country is that we have a lot of people, a lot. I
Hmm.
mean, 77 million people voted for him the second time.
How many?
77 million.
77 millions. Yeah.
That's how many Americans voted for Trump, the second time. Even after all the stuff, knowing everything about him, that many people were willing to vote for him. Now, I doubt if the election were tomorrow that he would get 77 million votes again, because a lot of people that voted for him did so because they didn't like Kamala Harris. They were unhappy. They didn't think that
Joe Biden.
the Democrats did not address immigration properly, and they didn't, by the way. And so it was a terrible campaign by the Democrats, but still voting for Trump. I think that will be different. That would be different now. But of course, President Trump doesn't run for reelection anymore. But the key will be these midterm elections in November. So, 11 months from now, we have a chance to knock off Republican control of the House of Representatives and the Senate. It's absolutely possible. If that election were today, the Democrats would win the House and the Senate. And then that would put a halt to most of the terrible things that the administration is doing, because they would control the budget and they would control the nominations process, all the things that enable Trump to do what he's doing. The thing that is most despicable to me is the Supreme Court, what they have done to give the president immunity.
Hmm.
How the hell every other president in our history never needed immunity, and you know, and not all of them have been great, but why did the Supreme Court decide the president must have immunity to do what he has to? What absolute bullshit! But now we've got a problem.
Absolutely. I just was also thinking, no, yes, I was just thinking about this Supreme Court thing, that is a very, very, very severe damage to democracy. Um, okay. By the way, I think, yeah, I in the moment I really it's crazy enough, but I don't have any more questions to you, Ben, today. It
Well,
was
then I think we can both give the time back to each other, and I will look forward to the next time. I think a lot's going to happen in the next few days vis-a-vis Greenland, Iran, Venezuela, and of course Ukraine. So next time, and it'll be after the Munich Security Conference, probably. It'll be the next time we can talk.
I
Okay.
hope I have the chance to be there too, but I was asking Nico Lange if he can help me to get in. But at least if I cannot get in, I will stay out, and at least we can perhaps meet there also at
Very
the
good.
Munich Security Conference. And I think too that this year, 2026, will be a very important year, and I think really Russia will. I I hope many people predict that Russia will that this regime can come to a collapse this year.
We should prepare for that. We were not prepared back in 1999
Hmm. Yeah,
when or yeah, when the I'm sorry, 89. We were not
89.
prepared. We were not prepared. We I have not met but one person that told me in 88 he predicted that next year it was going to happen. Nobody else that I've ever talked to said, "Yeah, I knew it was going to happen." I was surprised. So we were not prepared.
Hmm.
I think now we should anticipate the possibility, I would say even the probability that this is going to happen. So what can we do to help make sure to limit the violence, to make sure control of the nuclear weapons is not lost, to make sure that some oligarchs don't take all the money out to Dubai or
Yeah,
somewhere,
yeah.
um, to help rebuild Russia for the average Russian. So I think we should be anticipating this and preparing for it, to make sure it doesn't turn into, so that it's not another Putin that comes in.
Yeah, being prepared. This is a good keyword too, because we in Germany. Well, okay, when we when the war began in 2022 in Ukraine, my only thought was, okay, the only good thing about this is that now we can see what kind of nature Russia is. Before we had 2014 this Minsk agreement, and we had the wrong decisions, and now we have the chance to see. But nobody used this time, the last 4 years of Ukrainian heroic fight, to prepare also for military actions in Germany and in Europe and against Russia. So let's finish it like that. Let's be prepared. And thank you very much, Ben, for being my guest today on Talk for Ukraine. Everybody who is still here and has the chance to subscribe, please do it and help this channel to grow, that the program can reach more people. Thank you very much. All the best, Ben Hodges.
Thank you for the privilege, Christoph.
Bye-bye.